On May 25th, Argentinians celebrate May's Revolution Day and the 20th anniversary of the inauguration of Néstor Kirchner as the President of the Argentine Republic. At least 13 Palestinians were wounded during a new Israeli raid in the Aqaba Jabr refugee camp near the West Bank city of Jericho. The United Nations Tribunal for War Crimes committed in Rwanda announced the capture of Rwandan genocide suspect Fulgence Kayishema in South Africa after being on the run since 2001. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. On Thursday, May 25th, Argentinians celebrate May's Revolution Day, which is the year coincides with the 20th anniversary of the inauguration of Néstor Kirchner as the President of the Argentine Republic. On a day that remembers a key step towards the Argentine independence from Spain in the year 1810, social and political organizations have called civilians to gather at the May Square in Buenos Aires to celebrate the beginning of Kirchner's presidency 20 years ago. Kirchner, who arrived at the Casa Rosada with a low level of electoral support, achieved under his leadership the economic recovery, the overcoming of the 2001 crisis, and the cancellation of the debt with the International Monetary Fund. His presidency was marked by a significant commitment to human rights, promoting the trials for crimes against humanity committed during the last military dictatorship. Throughout his term in office, Kirchner also played a prominent role on the international scene, promoting his vision of a united and sovereign Latin America.
I come to propose a dream which is the construction of truth and justice. I come to propose a dream which is the construction of an Argentina of all and for all. I come to propose that we remember the dreams of our founding patriots and of our immigrant grandparents and pioneers, of our generation that put everything and left everything thinking in a country of equals. But I know that I'm convinced that in this historical symbiosis we are going to find the country that we, Argentines, deserve.
And members of the transgender community in Buenos Aires marched on Wednesday in front of the Congress to demand the approval of a bill that will grant economic reparations to trans people who have suffered abuses at the hands of state security forces. In response, the activists said that members of the Argentine transgender community have been persecuted, tortured, raped, and murdered during the military dictatorship between 1976 and 1983 and during the democratic period that followed, when the police edicts banned cross-dressing. They also stressed that the crimes against their community are comparable to genocide. Wednesday's mobilization was the 8th time that the activists have presented the bill, but so far no progress has been made in the Congress.
We want reparations for people who were victims of abuses by the police after the military dictatorship. Even in a democracy, there were police edicts where we could not go out to shop, go to do business, be on public transportation, on the street.
The National Electoral Council of Ecuador officially called on Wednesday for early general elections next August 20th to elect the president and the vice president and to renew the parliament. The electoral authority reminded that after the issuance of the executive power of Decree 741, which dissolved the parliament, alleging serious political crisis and internal commotion, they call all Ecuadorian citizens to participate in the early presidential and legislative polls in 2023 to elect a president and vice president and 137 representatives of parliament. According to the electoral calendar released on Wednesday, the period for the registration of candidates will run from May 28th to June the 10th. The electoral campaign will only last 10 days from August the 8th to 17th. The statement also indicates that the candidates will hold a debate on August 13th. In Mexico, a pipeline of the Pemex oil company exploded in the municipality of Polotitlan, the state of Mexico, leaving several people injured. Authorities reported that at least 7 people were injured in the incident and that so far no deaths have been reported. Officials stated that representatives of Pemex are controlling the situation. They have also initiated the corresponding investigations to determine the cause of the pipeline explosion. In addition, the municipality also issued an evacuation alert in the area where the pipeline exploded for the community of El Tesoro and part of the town in Celayita. Now we move on to other topics. In Mexico, huge amounts of ash expelled from the Popocatépetl volcano are affecting the economy of nearby towns. Following the volcano's increased activity, people living in nearby areas are forced to sweep the ashes off the streets on a daily basis, as concerns grow about the impact of the ashes on their crops and farm animals. The ashes are also affecting people's health, causing discomfort in the eyes and the throat of some children. The Mexican army is helping people to clean up. The Popocatépetl volcano woke up in 1994 after a long period of inactivity, and since early May it has been spewing gas and rocks. An earthquake of magnitude 6.6 was registered on Wednesday in the border region between Colombia and Panama. The Colombian Geological Service informed that the quake occurred at 22:05 local time and had its epicenter at a point located in the Caribbean Sea, 41 kilometers from the municipality of Acandí in the department of Antioquia. In this context, authorities reported the collapse of walls of houses in the locality of Capurgan. So far, there are no casualties and a tsunami threat has been ruled out. The earthquake was superficial and it was felt in a large part of the country, mainly in the coastal municipalities of the north and the northwest of the country. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. French ministers spoke before the National Assembly's Inquiry Committee into the Uber files on Thursday, which is investigating alleged secret lobbying by the ride-sharing application to facilitate its expansion in France. According to the parliamentary agenda, Uber's chief executive officer, Dara Khosrow-Washi, was also inquired about his company's tactics. In July last year, the Uber files revelations show how the French President Emmanuel Macron, then the economy minister, helped bolster Uber's growth in France back in 2015. In January, lawmakers from left-wing party France Unbowed decided to set up an inquiry committee to focus on the social, economic and environmental consequences of the ride-sharing application model in the country. Lawmakers also heard from Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne, who was both Labour and Transport Minister in Macron's previous administration, as well as from Clement Beaune, the current Transport Minister. Now we move on to other topics. 4 days ahead of Turkey's runoff presidential election, early voting at diplomatic missions abroad has come to an end. While over 60 million eligible domestic voters will be heading to the polls again this Sunday, 3.4 million voters living abroad began casting their early votes at diplomatic missions in over 70 countries since May 20th. According to Turkish agencies, over 1.5 million people had already cast their ballots at diplomatic missions 1 day before the polls closed. Even though polls close at diplomatic missions on Wednesday, Turks living abroad can still cast their votes upon arrival or departure at the points of entry until the evening of election day. In the first round of the presidential election, incumbent President Recep Tayyip Erdogan had earned 49.52% of the vote, while his main challenger, opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, received 44.88%. On Wednesday, during the 11th international meeting of high-level officials responsible for security issues, the President, Vladimir Putin, affirmed that Russia, together with other countries, will assuredly achieve a fair world order. Also, Putin assured that Russia was ready to engage in the closest level of interaction with all interested countries in efforts to counteract common threats and tackle the challenges that mankind is facing today. Separately, Putin talked about the significance of the Conference for the Global Situation, noting that over the years, regular interactions between security officials aimed at sharing their expertise and assessments have proven their utility and relevance. Finally, Putin hoped the meeting to be constructive and produce useful results while helping to determine new methods and areas for practical cooperation for the benefit of countries and peoples and in the interest of peace and stability on the planet.
We see that the current international situation is characterized by increasing instability. In different regions, the old centers of tension are expanding with the new ones emerging. The negative burden of conflicts is accumulating. The people of many countries are experiencing the dramatic consequences of coups organized from outside. This state of affairs is directly related to the desire of individual states and associations to preserve, maintain their dominance, and impose their own rules, completely ignoring the sovereignty, national interest, and traditions of other states. All this accompanied by a build-up of military potential, unceremonious interference in the internal affairs of other countries, as well as attempts to extract unilateral advantages from the energy and food crisis provoked by a number of Western states.
And over 100 firefighters in Australia battled massive flames and thick smoke on Thursday as a huge blaze consumed an unoccupied 7-story building in central Sydney. According to New South Wales Fire and Rescue Superintendent Adam Dewberry, the flames appear to be dying down as firefighters poured in water from multiple houses or hoses 2 hours after the fire took hold in the vacant building near the Central Station railway hub. Likewise, authorities on the site confirmed the fire also spread into another abandoned and derelict 3-story building. They further said that firefighters managed to stop the blaze from spreading to adjoining occupied buildings. So far, there are no indications of significant injuries to any of the members of the Republic. And TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries using StoreSat. Dial 461 and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. At least 13 Palestinians were wounded during an Israeli military raid in the Aqaba Jabal refugee camp near the West Bank city of Jericho. As a result of the raid, 14 Palestinian youths were arrested. According to Wafa news agency, local sources reported that Israeli troops entered the camp from multiple directions, deploying snipers on the rooftops. Likewise, more than 50 homes were raided, including those belonging to the governor of Jericho and the Jordan Valley territories and his sons. During the operation, live rounds were fired at Palestinian youths, leaving 13 individuals wounded, with one in critical condition. In recent months, Israel has intensified its attacks on Palestinian towns and cities across the occupied territories, resulting in numerous casualties and arrests. And also in Palestine, Israeli settlers broke once again into the AlAqsa Mosque, considered the third holiest place in Islam. Local sources confirmed that about 200 Israeli settlers broke into the esplanade of the mosque under the protection of the Israeli police. This comes at a time when Israeli forces are intensifying hostilities against Palestinians attempting to enter the mosque to facilitate the entrance of Israeli settlers. The Islamic Christian Committee in support of Jerusalem and its shrines warned on Tuesday that the new attempts by Israeli Judaization targeting the AlAqsa Mosque would undermine its Islamic identity. The committee reiterated that the Israeli occupation is making a substantial advance towards violating the legal and historical status quo, as well as forcibly creating a new Jewish reality. Hundreds of Israelis protested in Jerusalem on Thursday outside the home of the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu against a contentious government plan to overhaul the judiciary. The protests, led by members of the Brothers in Arms reservist group who opposed the government's plan, took place outside Netanyahu's private residence. Demonstrators claimed that the Prime Minister is isolating the country from the rest of the world and his actions are posing a threat to Israel's national security. Benjamin Netanyahu put the plan on hold in March after mass protests erupted against it. The plan, while passed, has not been shelved entirely, and protests against it have continued. In this sense, proponents stated that the legal changes are necessary to rein in what they say is an overly interventionist judiciary, while opponents argued it gives the government too much power. On Thursday, the United Nations Tribunal for War Crimes committed in Rwanda announced the capture of Rwandan genocide suspect Fulgence Kayishema in South Africa after being on the run since 2001. Kayishema is accused of orchestrating the killing of approximately 2,000 Tutsi people at the Nyanye Catholic Church during the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, according to International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals. Kayishema was indicted by the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda in 2001, which charged him with genocide and crimes against humanity for killings and other crimes committed in the Kibuye prefecture. Prosecutors representing the International Committee said the investigation that led to his arrest spanned multiple countries in Africa and beyond, and was made possible through the support and the cooperation of South African authorities. And as the African Union celebrated its 60th anniversary, as delegates from across the continent gathered in Addis Ababa for the opening ceremony to mark the occasion. Member states reviewed their success, challenges, milestones, and way forward in all areas and issues they have tackled since last year. In this sense, Musa Faki Mohammed, the former Syrian Prime Minister and the chairperson of the African Union Commission, made an opening statement welcoming those in attendance. During his speech, Mohammed highlighted the celebration of the 60th anniversary as an opportunity to recognize the role and the contribution of the founders of the Continental Organization who have contributed to the political liberation and the socio-economic emancipation of Africa.
The consequence of the intensification of the hegemony struggle between the great powers in this international context of conflicting geopolitical interests, the will of both parties threatens to transform Africa into a geostrategic battlefield, thus recreating a new version of the Cold War that is very detrimental to the effectiveness of multilateralism, of which global peace and security depend. In this zero-sum game where the gains of others would translate into losses for Africa, we must resist all forms of instrumentalization of our member states.
And authorities of Nigeria and Morocco moved forward in the project to build a gas pipeline through 11 countries of the African Atlantic coast. The project, considered a mega pipeline, will pump billions of cubic meters of fuel and has been in charge of Nigeria and Morocco since 2016. The $25 million investment will supply hydrocarbons to West Africa and Europe. The promoters of the project, which is 5 times longer than the Nord Stream 1, point out that the pipeline is contributing to peace in Africa and will expand the market for Nigeria's gas. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.